Imagine a firm of around 30 rampant West Ham casuals on a night out in Romford, terrorising all in their path until they descend on the iconic Hollywood nightclub. The club was home to one of the most destructive, terrifying door teams ever assembled south of the border. Proper old school doormen, or monsters some would call them. Their immaculate penguin suits and dicky bow ties filled out by powerful bodybuilders, fighters, killers, armed robbers, and men that would go on to become etched into British criminal history. Early 1980s, the football casual scene was beginning to sweep the nation, with skinheads and bother boots being replaced by Lacoste, Pringle and Fila, and a growing number of organised football firms going into battle with rival mobs or even local doormen trying to spoil their fun. On this night, the West Ham lads were attending the new and impressive venue in Romford, Hollywoods that had only been open a few years. In 1983, the club interior was built by an Italian architect, specifically for the Hollywood club owners, and it was a work of art. The centrepiece was a vast revolving dance floor that would cause much confusion to scantily dressed women dancing the night away. They would leave the dance floor only to realise their handbags, tables and friends were on the other side of the club due to the rotating floor. It also boasted a swanky VIP section with a pianist and beautiful hostesses for the more wealthy or famous patrons. It was this VIP section that would later cause a big fight with Roy Shaw and his pals, who took on the bouncers in a separate, vicious brawl, documented in Roy Shaw's book, and is a video on my playlist also. The ICF need no introduction, and historically are one of the most violent firms, pulling lads from across Essex, East London and beyond. They have many infamous members, the likes of Andy Swallow, Carlton Leach, Cass Pennant, and a whole legion of other tough men. In fact, in the 80s, a documentary featured notable names from West Ham's mob, and they had a fierce rivalry with Millwall. On this night, sometime during the late 80s, they had managed to slip through past the doorman in small groups and had mobbed together inside and had gathered by the DJ box and began asserting their dominance in the busy club. Back in those days, the DJ would have a panic alarm, and if he spotted trouble or was in trouble himself, he would hit the alarm. On this occasion, he hit the alarm twice, and Mick Kelly, a big tough Irish head doorman, led the charge from the front door to the DJ box and saw that a huge fight had erupted, with many punches being thrown and a large group attacking a smaller group, although he couldn't see through the masses who that was. He quickly decided that the best option was to steam them all through the fire doors and debate who needed sorting out once outside the club. Himself and his fellow bouncers charged into the mass of bodies, pushing them forcefully outside the doors and into the cold night air, where the casually dressed lads continued to punch, kick and attack their enemies, which happened to be, to Mick's surprise, the rest of the Hollywood doormen, including one big Lee Chapman. Lee, as broad as a house, standing over 6 foot, strong as an ox and a skilled fighter, was slinging the football lads around, swatting them like flies. There was no more thinking needed. As soon as Mick and his team saw it was their pals being attacked, they steamed in full throttle, fighting the lads who were in their early 20s. As the wild free-for-all evolved, the football lads were getting a severe beating, and prone bodies littered the floor with lots of cuts, bruises, injuries, and above all, dented egos. You may ask, how did the doormen know they were ICF? And bizarrely, it is because after the fighting had ended, one of the lads who'd been beaten to a pulp got up and in a daze handed the head doorman a card which read, "Congratulations, you just met the ICF." As the doorman pointed out, why hand a card like that when you've just taken a terrible beating? He put it down to the poor lad having concussion. It's important to note, none of these lads in their early 20s were known to the doorman, and the only reason they knew they were ICF was the card, so of course it's entirely plausible they were fringe or young members of the ICF. The consensus from the doorman was they were not much competition, so guess they were not their seasoned heavy mob. The calibre of West Ham's ICF and other football firms like the Canning Town lads was second to none, and they had many heavy hitters. So it's more likely this bunch were not the main players, and maybe aspiring lads who had a bunch of calling cards. In the aftermath, the head doorman and 2 others were arrested by the police as the ambulance scooped up the injured, and several of the West Ham lot were also arrested. The police wanted to arrest all the doormen, but as the owners rightly pointed out, if they were left with no bouncers, there would be even more carnage later that night, and they compromised on just the 3 doormen being taken. After some questioning by the old Bill, it was clear none of the groups wanted to press charges, so the police reluctantly let them all leave a few hours after each other, and the ICF and the Hollywood Door team went on to fight another day, and there were plenty of them to come. So that was the story of some members of the ICF, maybe fringe, maybe not the heavy mob, meeting up late 80s, around about 86, I think. So Hollywood's would have been open for a few years, and a big scrap taking place with the doorman, which ended up with a few nickings. But I thought it was an interesting little anecdote. I actually heard this on the Terry Stone podcast. It was an interview with Mick Kelly, who was the head doorman at the time. He's got a fantastic story, fascinating. We did a interview before with Liquid Bullet Production a couple of times, but this is a very detailed one. I listened to it on Spotify, but it's out tonight, I believe, which is Sunday, on YouTube. So you'll be able to listen to Mick's full story. I had a chat with Mick just about this and to see what he said about the fight with the ICF, etc. And his opinion is he only knew it was the ICF because of the calling card. But for him, he's seen young lads. Now, your likes of Cass Pennant, Andy Swallow, all them types, they would have been late 20s at the time. So if these were early 20s, late teens, it would have been some younger ones from whatever area. Like a lot of football teams and football firms, you have members from all over the shop, not all from one area. So, for instance, just for example, Stoke City, they had back in the day the Naughty 40, the Under Fives, the Young Casuals. There are all sorts of different mobs from different areas. So in Stoke, you've got Hanley, Newcastle under Lyme, Stoke itself, you've got Biddulph, Stafford. All over the shop, you've got different, mobs, etc. Similar with West Ham, so you've got the Mile End lads, you've got Canning Town, you've got the Essex side of it. So it's quite complicated. It's not just one firm from one area and that's it. So it could have been anyone back then. But I'd be interested to hear the thoughts of anyone who was actually there and involved in that that ruckus back in the late 80s. These type of events would happen all the time across the country with different football mobs. And I've got to point out, because of YouTube's community guidelines, I'm not promoting violence. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just having a historic look at these situations which took place. So we discussed them, and that's it. Anyone thinking of getting into violence, football stuff's over now, really. And it's not the same as it was. It's not organised as it was. I don't think so anyway. I mean, I don't have anything to do with it. So, yeah, I've just got to point that out. But these type of situations would happen across the country. So if you're not fighting with another firm, you and the boys might be going out on a Friday night, for instance, and you might be 10-handed, might be 20-handed, might be 30-handed, whatever. You go out, might be a birthday, might be just a night out with the boys from your area, and more than likely you're going to end up scrapping with some other lads, gangs, bikers, whatever it may be, bouncers. It's just part of, a group of like-minded individuals going out being boisterous, rowdy. You're going to clash, and these things happen. But I found this interesting listening to it because it ties in with some videos that I'm doing at the moment to do with the doorman from Romford and Essex and London around the Essex boys time, and different characters who came in the 90s, which I've got videos coming up on, which is going to be really interesting. Some people that you may never have heard of unless you came from sort of Basildon or Essex or that type of area. So yeah, there to look forward to. Be interested to hear your thoughts on the video, as per usual. Memories of being involved in football firms and how things have changed, and your thoughts and memories looking back at those crazy days. Yeah, looking forward to reading them. Okay, take care.